everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iWorkinSport live interview. This is the show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. If we're just meeting, my name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of iWorkinSport, and I'm very happy to have you in our company today. So thank you so much for being here with us. If this is your first time here, please let us know in the comments. If you're coming back, you know that I always ask you, where are you watching from? So let us know as well. This is always good to know. If you're watching the replay as well, just leave that in the comments and be prepared to ask your questions. You know how that works. If you, as I said, if you don't know iWorkinSport yet, we're a platform to accelerate your career in sport, to help you accelerate your career in sport. So if you work in sport or if you want to work in sport, we can help you either way, primarily through our events, whether it's the Education Virtual Expo, in which you find programs to advance your studies, or through the iWorkinSport Job Fair, which is actually coming up soon in Lausanne. So I'll have something right here. Oh, there you go. There, the iWorkinSport Job Fair. You just saw the ad in the beginning. If you want to attend, there will meet companies like FIFA, UEFA, FIBA, IMG, OneFootball, a tech company in sports, just signed with us today. There's many more. And if you want to meet the recruiters, have a chance to discuss an opportunity there, this is a place for you to go. So iWorkinSport.com/job fair. Now, let me get to my guest today. I have the pleasure to talk to my countryman, Brazilian as well, Luiz Fernando Lima. He is the chairman of Volleyball World, an entity created by the International Volleyball Federation, FIVB, and the private equity firm CVC. So we're going to discuss it, learn a bit more about that process. That was done last year. He's been working in sport for over 40 years, first as a journalist, like me, another thing we have in common, in addition to being Brazilians. He's a journalist, worked for many years at Globo TV, and then after being a journalist, at a more managerial role. So we're going to talk about that too. So, and he's been working at International Volleyball at the top management for over 8 years. I'm very interested to learn more about his career path, how he got to be where he is now. I'm sure that you'll enjoy it too. So let me invite Luiz to join us right after this. Hello, Luiz. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Hello, João. Hello, João. Good to be here with you. Let's have an exchange and share ideas and experience.
Definitely. We're here. Let's eager to learn a bit more from you. Just before we start, just give me a shout out to a few people that are already sending messages here. So on LinkedIn, we have Taruka already with some questions. We get that to in a second, Taruka. We have Jack Aldrich from Bath University. There is Navin here from Scotland. Good to hear you. Mamé in São Paulo, in Santos, Brazil. How are you? Alex in Portugal. And there's our friend Renata here. I presume you're in Lausanne, Renata. Good to see you. There's some more people watching there with us. If you want to know, if you want to tell us where you're watching from, just let us know. Luiz, so as I do with all my guests, I think it's a nice way to start. Can I ask you to maybe, give us a summary of your career. Since this is a show about career, this is what we're going to discuss, get some advice, some tips from you. So let us know. I already hinted that you're a journalist, but let's start from there.
No, the hint that you gave everybody is that I have been working with years. So how to make a summary of 40 years, it's a bit of a challenge. But what I can say to you is that I have been, let's say, involved and maybe passionate for sports since a very early age in my life. And that is something that is, I believe, is a big benefit if you early age. My first memory of sports, I think I was 6 years old, and I was taken by my parents to see a volleyball match in the World University Games in my city, my hometown city, Porto Alegre, in the south of Brazil, in 1963. So that's the first memory that I have of a sport event. A full venue, a lot of Brazilians really cheering for the Brazilian team, and it was a volleyball match. Not maybe by accident, I have been following volleyball for many years in my career. So when in a certain moment in my life, when you are about to complete your secondary school, before you decide where to go in university, I was influenced by some friends to take journalism, and I decided, yes, I think it's a good path. And I after a few months working with the general coverage of local coverage of journalism, I started to focus on sports. So basically, I worked for newspapers during 6 years, initially in my hometown in Porto Alegre, and then in Rio de Janeiro for some big Brazilian newspapers. And then I moved to television. And television was a passion because I was a fan of movies. I liked moving images. I liked editing. I liked the challenge of working with images. And I felt at the time that the expertise of Olympic sports was something that was missing in Brazilian sports coverage. I had in 1980, my first Olympics was Moscow 1980, working for a newspaper. I had
Did you go to Moscow?
I went to Moscow. That's my first Olympics. I had a very interesting experience in Moscow because I was following volleyball in the Luzhniki Stadium, which was the one for the competition of volleyball. And one day I was sitting very close to the television positions. And there was a Brazilian commentator doing the play-by-play of the volleyball match to Brazil. Brazil was playing somebody, I don't know, Bulgaria or something, or some other country. And this guy was using basically all the football jargon, soccer jargon, applying to volleyball. So the serve was about to be made, and he was saying, oh, he just kicked the ball. Again, he was using football terminology. And that gave me the perception that, oh, maybe television is really an opportunity, because I think that there is no real knowledge about certain Olympic sports. And so I started to think about that. And 2 years later, I was moving to TV Globo in Brazil. So that's how I started my career. Then I worked for 12 years as an on-camera reporter. I covered all the World Cup, FIFA World Cups from 86 to 94 as a reporter. I covered all the Olympic Games from Los Angeles until Barcelona as a reporter. And I was involved with different events in Formula One. I appear for a few seconds in the documentary with Ayrton Senna, the famous documentary about Ayrton Senna, where he's interviewed after his win in the São Paulo Grand Prix, and I am there interviewing him live. I was with him before that Grand Prix in the preparation for the race. And then I followed a few other Grand Prix in different years in Europe and elsewhere, Mexico, etc. So I had a very extensive, let's say, experience covering sports. And in '95, I was moved to a director position on TV Globo. And from '96, I became the sports director of Globo. So I had an extension of my proximity to the big events in the world, the World Cups, the Football World Cups, the Olympic Games, etc. But now in a different position behind the camera.
When you changed those positions, did you miss being in front of the camera or not really?
That's an interesting question. I think when you change positions in your career and you are looking at, or you have the opportunity to becoming the head of a team, you really have to prepare not to miss what you left behind. So you should never look on the rear mirror and say, listen, I'm missing something that I could have done. That's it. If you're changing, you are changing. You need to use your experience and the learnings that you had working under somebody else's supervision to use that experience now as the one responsible for other people to apply your knowledge and then help people to grow. And that's I think is the key element to build the team, is to understand individuals and to be able to allow individuals to flourish using their talent. It's not an easy task because personal relations many times are difficult ones. Expectations are something different to fulfill, but that's where the experience counts. And then, as I said, so I stayed as a director in Globo for a long period of time until January 2013. And when I completed this 30-year cycle in Globo, I immediately became a consultant for the International Volleyball Federation. And 2 years later, I became the Secretary General of the Federation. And then last year, we created Volleyball World, which is the commercial arm of the FIVB. It's a company that belongs to the FIVB. And I became chairman of the board. So for the first time now, after a long career, I am not involved in day-to-day operations or in the management, direct management of the commercial area of the federation, but I am more in charge of the connection between the federation, the investor, and trying to get the best contribution possible out of the members of the board that are the ones responsible for Volleyball World.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that. I want to actually follow up on the creation of Volleyball World. Just before I do, just a shout out to a few other people that are saying hi here. So Rishi Ranjan in China. There's Sebastian here in Lausanne. Sebastian is staying at my place in Lausanne. He's doing the ASTS. Jesus Lorenzo Gomez in Rennes, France. And then there's a comment that I will get to that in a moment. Luis, so you just mentioned the creation of Volleyball World as the commercial arm. It's nice that you gave that explanation because, as we were talking, there has been a trend of federations rebranding. So athletics became World Athletics and rowing World Rowing and all that. They were killing the acronyms and just rebranding. But what you did with Volleyball World was very different, right? So FIVB, or the International Volleyball Federation, is still there, and then partnered with CVC, right, to create that. Can you tell us just a bit better? I mean, what is the intent of that? And maybe, I don't know if you want to expand, because CVC is one that's were in Formula One before, and now, I mean, they sold it. Now it's with Liberty, but they have been investing in not only volleyball, right, but I think cricket in India, rugby, and now with La Liga in football. So maybe you can also expand and tell a bit about that trend. What do you think about it?
Well, I want to speak on behalf of CVC. I think that's something that is not my area, but I can say that the first topic here I would like to address is the communication topic, and the one that you mentioned, the acronyms. Okay, because again, it's not only about changing. In our case, it's not about changing the FIVB acronym and creating Volleyball World just because we wanted to have an easier way to communicate with fans. I think that the issue of acronyms involving many international federations is, first of all, a big topic because it touches many different points in terms of how sports wants to reach fans all over the world. And I remember I did in 2013, or early, I think in 2013, the first year I started as a consultant, I made a presentation to the FIVB board using many different acronyms, a mix of many different acronyms for all the international federations, and also certain acronyms of different companies, just to inform or to materialize in front of the FIVB board the topic of what is the understanding of a consumer, of an individual, if you are in front of those acronyms. And not surprisingly, the majority of the members could not recognize many other international federations because they were not aware of the sport that was connected to the acronyms that those federations used. And again, not coincidentally, just right after I made my presentation, I think a few months after that, the many federations started to change because I think there was already inside those federations the same perception. We cannot keep going on as, I don't know, as FISA. If we want to say that we are rowing, we must say we are rowing and not FISA. And again, the same topic was the one that I was addressing at the FIVB. If you want to say you're volleyball, you must use the word volleyball, especially because volleyball, if you think historically, it's not a sport that has the favor of a free media. If you compare the history of the big leagues today, the big sports today, I can mention here, I think football, I can say basketball, I can say, depending on the country, it can be cricket, but it can be in the US, can be baseball, American football, even car racing. If you look at the history of those sports, the media in different periods of the media understood different media, meaning newspapers. Later on, even the news reels that you have in the movie theaters showing news, and then radio, and then television. All of them understood that certain sports were capable to build communities around them. And because those communities were there and they were natural consumers of information, those communication medium started to provide space, to give airtime to those sports. And that helped build huge communities for football, for basketball, for the big leagues today. That was not the case of volleyball. Volleyball was left behind. If you think, for instance, that volleyball and basketball, they were both invented in the late 19th century, a few miles away, a few kilometers away, one and the other, in Massachusetts, United States. And they had a very close origin, a very close start. And the way they evolved is completely different. Basketball went into a direction of being very early influenced by a business mentality. And the basketball was a structure in the moment in the 40s, creation of a professional league. Here was given a certain attention. The first of the NBA were not years. If you look at the history of the NBA, 50s. I don't know if a lot of people knows this, but the NBA, I think they started in 1940 something with 18 teams. Then went down to 11 teams, and then they went down to 7 teams. So that is almost game over for basketball, the professional basketball league in the United States. But then somebody had an amazing idea, because somebody understood that the reason why basketball was going down and losing fans, it was because the game was very boring. The rules at the time allowed the team to keep the ball for as long as they wanted. So if you had a certain advantage in points in the score, you could keep the ball in defense. And so the shot clock came into play. And when they changed the rule and they forced the game to be more dynamic, and they forced the teams to shoot in order not to lose possession, suddenly the game started to be very appealing again. And I think that is the magical moment in the history of basketball. That is a turning point in the history of basketball, because from then on, the sport really understood its DNA and started to really grab, again, the attention of fans. So there is a logic about how to tell the story of each sport to the fans, but it always starts by having an attractive and appealing product. And I think that if you see the evolution of volleyball in the United States, it was mostly restrained to a school, and the sport was never able to materialize or to organize a professional league and to create the appeal that the sport could have presented to fans. And so it didn't become a big business. And then again, there are many aspects that are related to communication. If I just jump, before I could even continue on this topic because I think it's very interesting, but if I jump to the acronym situation, my message to the FIVB at the time was, if we want to be really well known as an organization, we should maybe change our name to Volleyball World or to something volleyball. It could be anything. It could be Volleyball Union. It could be anything, but should have volleyball in the name for fans to recognize. But that is the point where I would like to create the connection between the structure of traditional sports organizations versus the structure of professional organizations, because traditional sports organizations, they are still managed by certain principles that make it difficult for the certain change to take place. And changes that I want to refer to are connected to the real understanding of what the fans need, what the consumers need, and how to amplify your fan base, because that is a goal that all sports have. I need to amplify my fan base. I want to conquer more people for my sport. And again, and one thing that is common to the fans in all sports is that the fact that for all of them, the day is the same. The day has 24 hours, and how you spend your time will depend a lot on the appeal of the possibilities that each individual has. So if I'm watching something on TV that is not appealing to me, I will simply change my channel. I'll look for something else. Or I will schedule myself to see things that I really think that are interesting for me, according to my taste, to my preferences, to the things that I like, I enjoy doing or watching, and then I will schedule myself and I know what I'm gonna do. If I wanna see the finals of the Champions League, I know what I can expect. If I wanna see the finals of a tennis event, I know what I can expect. And then I'm going to schedule myself. But you need to have an appealing product. And many sports are missing the journey of really understanding what the fans need. It's very common that people say, oh, we need to do research and ask fans what they want. And usually I think that is a wrong approach, because I think that fans don't know what they want, but you can do research to discover what they need. And what they need is different from what they want. what they want is an answer that they cannot provide because they don't know what's possible. But if you are in control of an idea, or if you are in control of a sport, you should be the one knowing what you can deliver to fans. So and that is why, in a certain moment in our evolution here inside the FIVB, we analyzed, after the first 4 years of the current management under the presidency of President Ari Graça, who has been always very supportive of the ideas of innovation and creation of opportunities. After the first 4 years, when he was re-elected for an 8-year term, to be his final term at the FIVB, we said, we have 8 years now that we can really invest in planning something that can be meaningful, can be significant for the sport. And then analyzing what we had in our hands. We knew that we had in our hands an amazing sport with a lot of potential to capture the fans' attention, but we did not have a good product around the sport. So we decided to create certain changes in the calendar, to change competitions. We decided to really implement and make mandatory for top events the use of technology like the challenge system that we created to eliminate the eventual human failure of refereeing, because referees are human beings, they can fail, but it's not fair to the athletes to give a point to somebody based on the error of the referee. So we brought technology to fix that. But most and above all, we understood that without bringing external capacities, we would not be able to change that political model that is traditional inside sports organizations. The traditional model means usually the sports organizations are managed by people who are extremely passionate for the sport, and maybe they have a strong sport background, but usually there are other skills missing in that context. And those skills are skills that many times revolve around commercial skills, but commercial not in the sense purely financial sense, meaning commercial as a way of transaction between what you have to offer and the consumer, what you have as a sport and the fan. That is a transaction. That is the commerce that the sports federations or sports organizations must always try to focus. And I think that on top of this, I think we always had also a social vision about the role of sports. So the social vision is we must create a very high level, fantastic product in order to create the motivation for youth to practice volleyball. And we want to do it in a way that can allow for boys and girls, no matter what resources they have, to be able to come to volleyball and enjoy playing volleyball. So we want also to break away with the idea that at the grassroots level or at for the very base of the society, very, very young people, you don't need to play with an official ball. You don't need to play 6 against 6. You don't need necessarily a net, but you can play volleyball just because it's fun to keep the ball flying. So that is part of the overall vision that we had, and that led us to look for a partner to invest in volleyball, because that would be the way to really to create, to accelerate the process of transformation. If we simply kept doing what we wanted to do with our vision inside the traditional sports organization, we knew it would take a long time. Because I go back to my presentation of 2013. I presented all these acronyms. I presented the logic, but the political decision was not possible because the perception of the value of the FIVB didn't allow the federation to vote and decide to eliminate FIVB and go for a different name.
No, that was great.
So I don't know if we have now, if I'm frozen or not, but João, I think we may have a glitch here.
Can you hear me? Hello? Luis, can you hear me? Oh, I think he's refreshing there. Just bear with me a moment. You know, this is live, so these things happen. So Luiz is coming back.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know in the moment.
We heard everything. There was maybe a few seconds at some point that was a bit harder to understand. But when you were talking about the NBA, but I think we could hear everything. And no, that was very nice. It was great to see you lay out the vision that you had with, when you came to FIVB, you know, and I know that you love storytelling. And we talked about this before, and I was preparing, he's going to come back to CVC, but you came back and full circle, so you closed exactly what we wanted to know. Listen, I do have, of course, many more questions, but there are comments and there are some questions coming in from the audience. And so I would like to, or even already start to mention a few of them before. Let's say hi to Thierry Jand in Hong Kong. Hello, Thierry.
Well, I am also missing you a lot because I'm having the small glitches. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi connection. Maybe I could try to connect through 4G and make it sure that the Wi-Fi doesn't.
Let's try that, because I think that might be the case here. To me, it seems that it's okay. Maybe someone in the comments can say if there was a problem with the transmission there. Are you going to go on your phone?
I'm going to put my phone here. I think it's better.
Okay. So I'm going to take you out.
Okay.
Yes. Great. I'm going to take you out to the other camera now. 1 second.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can. Just 1 second. I was trying just to put you on my loudspeaker here, which doesn't seem to be possible.
We can hear you very well. If you can hear my questions.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to listen to what you're saying because now you are a bit far away, but it's okay.
Okay, I'll try to speak clearly. Just before we go, there's questions from the audience and a comment here from Claudia Ibarra. It doesn't show her name, but she says that she had a class with you at ASTS. Oh, let's see if that works better. Does that work better? Hello?
I think StreamYard doesn't allow the transfer from the microphone. I don't know why, but yeah. Keep going, João. So what's the question?
Okay. No, just I was just reading first a comment from Claudia Ibarra, just so you know, that she said that she had a class with you at ASTS, which she quite enjoyed. So saying that you're a great speaker. And there's a question here in the beginning from Taruka in India. Volleyball is focusing big time on digital transformation. What has been the outcome? Have you seen a rise in viewership, etc.? So can you comment on that focus that you're putting on digital?
Yeah, I think we are at the very early stage of this focus on digital, but I think that for sure this will be the main and most significant change that people will see around volleyball in the coming years. I again, in my position now at the board, one thing that I try to do is to manage expectations and try to avoid that people put a lot of pressure on short-term results, especially on areas that require development. So, for instance, as I mentioned, I think you need in all sports to have first of all, a very strong product. And by product, I mean a very strong way to present your events. If you look at the standards that you have in football today around the world, if you look at American football, if you look at the NBA, if you look at Formula One, cricket, all those sports, they have already developed a visual language. In essence, what I mean is, if you turn the TV to watch any of those sports, when they are staging games in their top level competitions, you know that as a fan, you're going to have a story being told in front of you, which you'll be able to fully understand, because the cameras, the editing, the cameras cutting from one to the other will allow you to understand the story of the action, and you are going to be able to see not only the live action, but you're going to be able to see through the replays how the action took place when something relevant happens, and you're going to be able to see through close-ups the reaction of the athletes, the emotions that are involved in the game. And that's what creates the bond between the sport and the fans. So first of all, you need to create that proper visual narrative. For many sports, for the majority of the sports, especially Olympic sports, that is a huge challenge, because you don't have, across different markets, you don't have specialized professionals that understand your sport. And so when this happens, this creates a significant limitation in the way that you can really take the best out of your events to show to the fans. So digital is part of our transformation, because we believe that there is no way the delivery of content directly to individuals can be avoided by all sports. It's something that we believe it's a challenge for many sports today because of the investment required. But as a business model, it doesn't look like the world will go in a different way in the near future. Near future can be, 5 years from now, can be 10 years from now. But more and more, I think that we are aligned with the vision that traditional mass media will change or will completely be in a different model somewhere soon in the future. So today, by transforming, the first transformation we are really now investing is the way we present our events to fans. And for this, I think next year, we are going to start to see significant new additions.
Can you hear me? Now we stopped hearing you. It was, I think, sorry. I think you pressed mute. Somehow you might have touched the mute button there. Go.
Okay. Now apparently my phones started to work, and then the microphone was mute.
Okay.
So what I was saying is that the product that we are looking, the volleyball product, the volleyball broadcast from next year will have significant new additions in terms of graphics, in terms of data, and we believe that we are going to really be able to deliver a much better product to the fans and across the world. Volleyball TV is our tool today to start to engage fans. We have seen significant progress in the initial months of this year when we started to use, let's say, a different approach on about how to engage fans across different territories. And I think that this initial result is showing us that we are in the right direction. So we need also to understand that digital allows us to really exploit the concept of the long tail. Live events for sure will keep being the most important element for sports. It's when the sport is live, is the moment when fans know that they can share that feeling of belonging to a community that doesn't know more than them. So when you're seeing sports live, you know that nobody knows more than you about the outcome of the competition. But in the digital world, there is a huge value for everything that is also post-live, if you are able to capture the images and the audio of the live event in a proper way, because you can distribute and you can reformat the content and repackage the content in many different ways. And there are lots of platforms allowing you to deliver that content to fans on digital platforms. So that is the long tail approach that I believe in sports makes a lot of sense.
Right. Thank you, Luiz. There are two comments / questions here that I think are more or less or are linked to what you're saying, because they are about how other sports, so I think that they are not football, how they can sort of evolve in maybe sort of that direction. So I'm actually going to read the comments and questions, and then you can comment on this. So there's two. So one is from Renata. So a lot of issues you are mentioning have been issues of the industry for decades. What do you think finally imposed federations to move, albeit slowly? I think it's what you've been talking about. Do they recognize those changes are overdue? I'm going to read this one as well because I think they're linked. From Alexandre Diaz, say, coming from the private sector to an international federation, could you say that if the federations don't change, their sports are at risk in the future?
I cannot speak on behalf of the other federations. I'm sorry, because we are live, so these things happen.
These things happen. Let me put this on mute. I just put them on mute. I'm gonna take the time to say hi here to Otacílio, say hi to Regina. I'm saying both in Brazil. There is also John Mark Phoebe in Ghana, as well as Lizzie Mupure from Zimbabwe. So it's a very international audience, Luiz. So I put those up just so you know that you're talking to people in Brazil, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe, in Europe, all over the place.
I think volleyball is a very universal sport. And again, one of the pitches we made to our potential future partners was precisely that volleyball is the most universal sport that is not yet a big business, but with the whole potential to become a fantastic product for fans across the globe. But the fact is this: I think the questions here are touching also the topic of why we needed a partner, and if to have a partner that is external can help accelerate the process of growing a sport. And I think my answer clearly yes, because that's why what we were looking for when we started to search for a partner, an external partner. What we were looking for, and I think that is the main asset that a company like CVC is bringing to the sport, is a certain approach that normally you don't find in sports organizations. And I'm talking about, speed of execution, is to really not lose time. If you see something that is needed or beneficial, you do your job. If it's something that you can afford, if it makes sense, you have to do it, and you do it fast. You don't spend a lot of time before you do it. Another big advantage is that you have access to talent, professional talent, that normally would not be part of a traditional sport organization. I'll give an example. So in our deal, the CVC, they came with the proposal for the CEO of the company, And as CEO, we have Finn Taylor, who is an amazing guy with a fantastic experience, 20 years working for Cirque du Soleil, responsible for the global shows of Cirque du Soleil. He had under his management, before Cirque du Soleil started to have difficulties because of the pandemic, he had a few thousand people that he was managing to handle all those shows across the globe, plus all the shows in the United States, except for the shows in Vegas. So a guy with a fantastic experience in managing entertainment and a fantastic experience that could be only positive to a sport like volleyball. So by adding talent like that to manage volleyball, we open the door to bring also people with different experiences, different knowledge that you don't find normally inside a sport organization. And those are, I think, that are significant benefits for a sport like volleyball. Now, for those sports that are, let's say, in doubt about how to move forward and if you should have or not a partner, I cannot really answer for what's going on in different federations. What I can say is that a good number of federations have already approached the FIVB to understand how the process took place and what was the trajectory that we went through in order to get to the point where we are right now. And I think that the more results we will start to present, the more I think other federations will feel at least the curiosity to ask about this process, and maybe they will feel also compelled eventually to change. Because I agree with the question, I think it was Alexandre who raised the question. I think that there may be a risk for certain sports, because again, the reason for the survival of sports basically is the fan. And if you're not able to expand your fan base, if you're not able to reach a significant fan base, then I think that your future is a little bit bleak. It's bleak, it's like you don't know what's going to happen. It may be you are subject to disappear. I think that one of the main window for Olympic sports is the Olympic Games, and I do believe that the Olympic Games, the IOC has a constant process of evaluation of which sports really should be kept in the Olympic program and what sports can eventually be changed. I think this is an ongoing discussion. So no sport can feel safe with a guaranteed place in the Olympic Games, and change is necessary. Evolution is necessary.
Right. No, 100%. Listen, Luiz, I'm going to ask you just, I think, one more question, I think, from the audience that's still about volleyball, and maybe another one or two, maybe to get some tips and advice about career people entering the job market that want to work in sport. So there is a question here from Rishi Ranjan from India. Will Volleyball World explore the scope of NFTs and crypto to connect with Gen Z?
We may, but it's not yet. We may. It's in the map, but it's not yet in the pipeline. As I said, also you cannot do. We know that there may be 1,000 tasks ahead, but we cannot do 1,000 things at the same time. We need to establish priorities. And I think that the main priority for a sport like volleyball is to have amazing events properly presented to a huge base of fans that we know exist across multiple territories. When we did our research based on Nielsen, one of the top global research companies, this study showed us that we had more than 720 million people in the world saying that they were interested or very interested in volleyball. That does not translate into being interested in FIVB events. But we know that this huge fan base exists. And when CVC did their due diligence, trying to studying the numbers of of the FIVB and studying the numbers of volleyball, they went for 26 markets. They searched 26 markets through a different company just to compare data, and they found almost 800 million people saying that they have that interest for volleyball. So we have a huge potential to grow, and that's all we need, is to be sure that people are interested in our sport, and then we need now to present to them the new product that we have. But we cannot go for specifically for Generation Z or baby boomers, or we cannot pick at this moment certain tools that will be exclusively or almost exclusively targeting specific groups. I think our approach right now is to really create a great volleyball product, and that is what we are working on in order to grab the attention of those hundreds of millions of fans.
That's great. Thank you, Luiz. Let me touch now on more specifically about career. I'm sure that you are asked advice all the time. So you're someone who started in sport as a journalist, so covering many mega events. Then you moved to the managerial side. Now you're helping build the future of a whole sport, which is volleyball. So when people come and ask you for advice, basically they tell you, "Oh, I really love sport. I would like to work in sport." What is maybe the advice that you give them?
I don't have anything amazing, like those Albert Einstein quotes that you have in the internet. Some of them truly belonging to the genius that he was, but many of them that are fake because they are just common sense. I think common sense many times applies. I think that you have to be passionate for whatever you want to do in your career, and you do have to study a lot, and you do have to read a lot, and you do have to collect information about what you're doing, because if you are not able to really understand your area of focus, you are not going to be able to progress. I think that progress comes from being able to really grab a lot of information, being able to manipulate that information to create content, and as you go on and you apply your knowledge, then you really create some wisdom along the way. So I think there is a chain of things that you need to do, but everything starts with really understanding as deeply as you can your area of interest.
And what is the importance, you would say, of, let's say, formal education? So we here, I iWorkinSport, we work with several programs. Someone just mentioned that you were teaching at the ASTS.
Yeah.
I did the FIFA Masters. There's so many others that we work with. So people invest a lot of time, of course, money there in those programs because they want to learn. How does someone at a federation like yourself, how do you view that investments in education?
I think that today it's almost mandatory for organizations to require that you have a diploma, that you have graduated in a certain area. But I think when I do an interview, I really don't ask about the academic background. I want to ask the people questions that are related to the area that they want to work on. And if they want to work on a financial area, I will ask certain questions more related to finance and to business. If they want to work on the technical area of sports, I want to know how much they understand about the sport, what is their perception. I do also ask questions that are more general about, their vision about life or about people, because then you can have maybe a better picture of an understanding of who the person is. But I understand that today you cannot avoid having an academic career. In the end, my understanding of an academic career is that it gives you the tools or forces you to focus and dedicate time to study certain subjects. It's not something that you cannot do outside the traditional school system. But if you have to do it on your own, it's much more complicated because you need really to be focused. You need to be resilient, and you cannot really give up. You need to be also very self-disciplined in order to do it. Myself, I was never able to graduate on my journalism school. I tried a few times, but I had to start to work very early in Brazil. And because at that time you did not require a graduation to work as a professional, I became a professional journalist by myself, by working on newspapers from very early age. But the fact is this: I never stopped studying. I never stopped doing my own academic personal journey. And again, I think you mentioned to me that usually you ask people about their which books I would recommend. And I don't have one book or that I say, oh, this is my my preferred book as a guidance. I have been, and I am usually mixing different types of books in my routine of reading. Reading is something that is not easy. Once I did a campaign for Globo, I proposed a campaign which was named To Read is Also an Exercise. And I had different athletes, from football athletes to different sports athletes, reading pages of a book. Many times they were reading with difficulties because they were not really students with a career. They were athletes, football athletes, and they were missing the proper school formation, but they understood the importance of their participation in this campaign because it was a message for kids. And the whole approach was that to read is also an exercise. It's not only the exercise that they were doing in their own sports. To read is an exercise because it requires concentration. It requires discipline. It requires that you dedicate time of your life to get a book, open the book, and then go through the knowledge that is contained in there. And so I read from literature from Jorge Luis Borges, an Argentinian writer who is a genius in literature. I read philosophical books. I read business books. I read financial books. I read a mix of things that I believe can add to my understanding. In the end, it's my understanding about people and how to address people. The thing that always fascinated me from the start of my career is how do I tell the best possible story to somebody that is in front of the newspaper for which I'm writing for, or in front of the television that I am now creating content for. So it's how to tell stories. And if you want to be a good storyteller, the more knowledge you have, the better, because it will facilitate your narrative. That's
great. Luiz, so we have 1 minute to the hour. So I told you that was going to fly by. We still have a lot of people watching us here. So let us know if you enjoyed it. Leave that like there if you're watching it on YouTube, or leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. Maybe one last before we go. You like storytelling? Maybe you can tell a story about it, because I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite sporting moment? I mean, you covered so many Olympic Games and World Cups and been working with sport. So you probably met many heroes of yours and, athletes. But what would you say is your favorite sporting moment before we go?
That's also a difficult one. I think about this a few times, but again, I don't think I have one favorite. I have been in many, many situations where emotions were extremely high. The victory of Ayrton Senna in the Brazilian Grand Prix was one example, because very high emotion. When Brazil won the FIFA World Cup in 2002, fantastic emotion, because we created a party in one of the dressing rooms and we were broadcasting live to Brazil from the venue in Yokohama, directly with all the team participating in a big party. But maybe one amazing moment in my career is connected to volleyball. It was the first men's gold medal for Brazil in Barcelona, in the Olympic Games in Barcelona in 1992, when I covered all the matches of the Brazilian team. And after Brazil won the gold, I invited and I walked with the whole Brazilian team from the stadium, who was up in a hill. We walked, I don't know, like maybe 2 kilometers down to the TV studios. And from there also we had a fantastic party, and we created that fantastic moment for the Brazilian audience live in Brazil. So again, I don't know, maybe there are many other moments where I was there and I was like a witness, and at the same time I was a producer, and I was part of the story. But I think all those moments, what they have in common is that somebody was watching and somebody was paying attention to the story. And that story was not only relevant because of the moment that was being that we were living in, that what was happening in that moment, but also those stories involved emotions, involved a feeling of gratification and a feeling of celebration, which in the end are human amazing feelings. Those are fantastic emotions that you can have as a human being. So I think those moments have that thread in common.
Thank you so much, Luiz. There was a question here from Regina asking you about the Brazilian volleyball team, the national team, men's and women's, and you just mentioned that one of your favorite sporting moments has to do with volleyball. So that was great. And listen, I just want to thank you for participating. One second, please, because there's just one last thing that came here from Naveen. He says, I have finished. Let us put on screen. I have finished my MSc in sports management as well as UEFA license. How do I approach a sporting organization outside the UK, especially with a lot of barriers like culture or language? Sorry, before we go, very quickly, any advice on that? You know, the intercultural, mix. I think he's in the UK and wants to work out of the UK in Europe. Any advice on that?
I think that you have to provide your plans, or your CV, etc. In the combined in the FIVB and Volleyball World, we are less than 70 people, but I think we have more than 20 countries present here at the volleyball structure in Lausanne. So we are totally open to cultural mix. We have no restrictions. Volleyball is the most balanced gender sport, I believe, because I think the appreciation of men and women's volleyball is at the same level, like in no other sport, at the highest level. Even in the Olympic Games, we have many times more audience for the women's events than for the men's, if not the same. Some women's are sometimes higher in terms of audience. So I think that the sports in general, they should be open to a cultural mix, because I think no sport can avoid thinking about being global today. And if you want to be global, you need to understand different geographies. So this means that there is an opportunity for everybody. Thank you.
What I'll tell Naveen is that, Naveen, check out, iWorkinSport.com/job fair. Check out, there's going to be this event on the 20th of May. Come check it out, meet many organizations. FIVB, Volleyball World, is not there. It's not confirmed yet. I'm trying to convince them to go. Let's see, but many others are there. So as I mentioned, FIFA is there, UEFA, the IOC, and a few others. Talking about cross-cultural, even the African Football Confederation will be there in Lausanne. So I hope to see you there. Luiz, can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you everyone for watching, for the participation. You make this great. As I said, your questions are much better than mine. I had many prepared here. I went to yours, and I think that was much, much better. So Luiz, just stay there another 5 seconds until I turn this off, and I'll tell you when we can go. Bye-bye, everyone.